Hello everyone, and welcome back to another fantastical video in the book of Numbers today, Numbers chapter 9. Free PDFs that you can download with all this information and use it for your personal Bible studies on our website at tobelikechrist.com. Now, Numbers chapter 9. Who are our main characters for this chapter? We have Moses. Of course we have Moses. He is the leader of the Israelites selected by God to lead the people of Israel to the Canaan land. We have his brother, whose name is Aaron. Aaron is from the tribe of Levi, and he is the high priest of the Israelites. And then we have a group of people. I wasn't exactly sure what to call them. I just called them the unclean men. And these are certain men who are unable to participate in the Passover memorial because they were unclean on the designated day that the memorial was supposed to be kept. When did these events happen? Well, these events actually predate the first 6 chapters of Numbers. Numbers chapter 9 records the observance of the second annual Passover memorial. The second Passover was kept a year after the Israelites left Egypt, the 14th day of the first month of the second year. And this would be approximately 1490 BC. And I imagine you could have guessed, but in terms of our map, we are still encamped at Mount Sinai in the wilderness of Sinai. The Israelites will be there for a little while, but eventually they will move on to new territory. And we'll talk about how they knew when to move at the end of this chapter. Now for our outline. Verses 1 through 5 of chapter 9 talk about the celebration of the second Passover memorial. So God spoke to Moses, and he told Moses to command the Israelites to keep the Passover memorial just as they had 1 year previous to this, right before they left Egypt. The feast was to be observed on the 14th day of the first month at twilight. The people kept the feast as was instructed by God, and according to all of the commands and instructions how they were supposed to keep it that were given way back in the book of Exodus. In our second section, verses 6 through 14, we're going to talk about a secondary day for those who missed the Passover feast. So there were a few men in Israel who were unclean, spiritually unclean, from touching a dead body. Perhaps one of their relatives died, they went to a funeral, something like that. They were unclean on the day that was specified for the Passover to be taken, and they were not allowed to eat the Passover because they were in that unclean state. So they approached Moses and Aaron, and they asked them what could be done. Moses went to God and asked for his guidance on this, and God told Moses that he could set up a second day for those who missed the initial Passover feast. This second day was going to be exactly 1 month after the regular Passover. So second month, 14th day of the month. Anyone who missed the Passover unintentionally because they were unclean or because they were on a long journey was welcome to partake of it on this special day. That said, this was not to be used as an excuse to skip the Passover. Anyone who intentionally skipped the observance of the Passover memorial was to be, quote, cut off from his people. And then finally in verses 15 through 23, we're going to talk about the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. So if you remember back in Exodus chapter 13, verse 21, we were told that God guided the camp of Israel with a pillar of cloud during the day and then a pillar of fire during the night. So when the tabernacle was finally set up and erected, the pillar of cloud rested over the tabernacle. When the pillar moved from that location, the Israelites would know that it was time for them to break camp and to move and to follow God's guidance. Sometimes the pillar remained in a particular location for weeks at a time. Sometimes it was only a matter of hours. But whenever and wherever the pillar of cloud and fire led the Israelites, they followed. So when it's finally time for us to change our map and for the Israelites to move away from Mount Sinai, that will be the time when the pillar of cloud moves from the tabernacle. And now for our application as we finish up. Question: do we go to God for direction before we make moves? Obviously, we don't have a pillar of fire that we're following, that guides us through life. Maybe that would be nice, but we ought to seek God's guidance before choosing a particular path, before relocating, undertaking a project, pursuing a dream, making an investment. We should seek God through prayer and perhaps through fasting, asking Him to steer us correctly. And I should mention that not just in the big things, but also in the small things, the daily tasks that we undertake, the daily decisions that we make. We have such limited vision of the future and the variables that will affect us that we need God's foreknowledge of those things to guide us into the best outcome.